T.R. Srinivasan, Group CFO, Varroc Group, joins in with his sense of how the road ahead looks like for the segment. And we have Bharat Gianani, who's research analyst for Auto and Auto Ancillaries at Sharekhan, joining us with his views as well. Give us your sense first, and I would want, Mr. Srinivasan, you to give us, an overview of where the sector is headed, because a large part of the story with regards to the two-wheeler space has been about rural demand.
Yeah. Good morning, and thanks for having me on your show. It is true that there has been some slowdown in the two-wheeler market in the last few months, especially the beginning of the festival season was not as strong as expected. But what we see is that the later part of the festive season has gone better, and overall the demand seems to be kind of holding up. And of course there are a couple of factors like some regulatory changes related to insurance on third-party cover, which impacted the upfront costs and hence the sentiments to some extent, and the in-between fluctuations or the shooting up of the fuel cost. So these are a couple of factors which kind of had some short-term impact on the sentiments, but I think while the growth is not as strong as the earlier part of the year or last year, but still growth seems to be holding up to a large extent. So.
Right. Bharat, your sense of what's, being an impediment in the big growth story for two-wheelers?
So good morning to the viewers. So basically we have seen the insurance costs going up, the mandatory insurance costs for the two-wheelers which the Supreme Court mandated has to be taken for a period of 5 years, and you have to pay the price upfront. So definitely that has been a very big dampener as far as the two-wheeler sales is concerned, and the ruling came in just at the time of when the festive season was about to start. So the timing was also a bit of a dampener to that extent. So we are definitely seeing an impact of this in the two-wheeler volumes. The growth has come down. Even December also we are not expecting a very strong jump in the volumes, but I believe that from Q4 the recovery should start happening because the insurance thing will start to get into the consumers mind. It will be away 3-4 months. The consumers will have the capacity to absorb that, and we have also seen the fuel prices correcting significantly in the last 1 month or so. So that should also reduce the overall cost of ownership and should gradually lead to an improvement in the two-wheeler volumes. If we see the rural part, the rural economy has been strong, doing well. MSPs have been higher, the farm incomes are on the higher side. So that will also to an extent help in reviving the two-wheeler volume. So near term, obviously there are issues. We have seen slowdown, but I expect a gradual recovery from Q4.
Mr. Srinivasan, want to specifically talk about what's happening with two-wheeler growth, because that has moderated a fair bit, and it was a little alarming, the kind of trends that we saw in the November sales. While Bajaj has been strong, has seen a strong growth in volumes, what's keeping you upbeat? What has been the growth in orders from Bajaj vis-a-vis other clients, which I'll talk about later?
See, I would not like to go into customer-specific numbers to extent confidential, but Bajaj is our biggest customer, and obviously if they are doing well, we also get to benefit from that. That goes without saying. So the other trend which we are seeing this year in particular, because if you look at the last 2-3 years, the growth in the scooter segment was faster than the motorcycle segment, but that trend seems to have reversed in the current year, and the motorcycles have been growing faster, and our exposure on that is higher, so to that extent also we have benefited. And of course there are some player specific issues which maybe might have impacted a couple of OEMs specifically, so that's transitory thing. But overall the way we see it, except for the temporary blip we saw sometime in let's say October kind of time frame, September-October time frame, due to the insurance and the fuel price things, the underlying demand and the growth trends seem to be intact. May not be the kind of double-digit growth that what we have been seeing in the past may not continue, but definitely high single-digit growth seems to be very much possible.
You know, in the same vein, Mr. Srinivasan, the other shocker was the slowdown that we've seen in Royal Enfield volumes. What's your sense from a supplier point of view? And I don't want you to get into, specific numbers here, but has there been any change or growth at all in the orders post the Chennai plant issue getting resolved? Or do you think that this is the beginning of a trend that we're likely to see from Eicher?
Difficult for me to comment on, let's say, OEM specific factors, but they did have issues in the, as you mentioned, in their manufacturing, the disruption because of the strike issues and so on, which I think to a large extent seem to have been resolved. So I think to that extent we see the demand coming back, and so that probably was sort of some inventory correction in the channel, which is now probably run its course. But on the long term, we are quite optimistic with them as well. So they are one of our strong customers.
Right. Bharat, there was talk about how Bajaj Auto was holding out, because of their export sales. Do you think the export market can give some sort of cushion to players, not just in the two-wheeler space, but also auto ancillary, so to speak, that can help keep the momentum going for the sector?
Yeah, so definitely export specific auto ancillaries. We see the likes of Sundaram Fasteners, Rico Auto. So basically these companies, definitely the export market cushion will definitely help to offset the, if I may call, the moderation in the domestic volumes. So export related ancillaries will definitely see a huge advantage because of this.
Okay. Mr. Srinivasan, how would you, if you could draw a comparison, how would you look at the two-wheeler story versus the four-wheeler story? Because there are concerns of growth peaking there too. M&M has pretty much stated in no uncertain terms that FY20 will be the year when the rate of growth will actually, squeeze out a bit.
Yeah, actually, if you look at passenger vehicle space, even in the current year, the growth has slowed down significantly, especially from the second quarter onwards. So that's the trend you see across the OEMs. So that seems to be again a combination of fuel prices, insurance costs, and other macro sentiments. But our exposure to the four-wheeler space in India is fairly limited, so we are not seeing much of an impact on that. But yeah, I think when and to what extent the demand will come back, it's a bit difficult to say at the moment. I think another factor contributing to the slowdown compared to previous years, this year the number of new launches also have been quite limited, because normally new launches trigger excitement and fresh round of buying from the consumers, which hasn't happened to that extent this year. So maybe when the launches come back, let's say in the next few quarters, maybe the demand will pick up again.
Right. Bharat, so how is it that you will sum up the action across, firstly, the two-wheeler segment? Besides Bajaj, there has been that declining trend, and that's really a little alarming. There have been certain specific issues which, say, an Eicher did have to face. But I guess the stock prices and the way they have been battered to their 52-week lows are telling you a story there. Do you think now is a good time to start nibbling in, buying these two-wheeler names, or would you say that, wait, the decline has just about started?
Well, if you see the two-wheeler volume growth, definitely there is a moderation as we clearly discussed. But another specific issue which is there in the two-wheeler segment is the level of aggressive pricing which the players have resorted to gain market share. So if we see Bajaj Auto clearly changing its strategy and giving priority to market share gains over the margins, which was the earlier strategy. So definitely this has resulted into a lot of pricing pressures, and has increased the margin pressure in the two-wheeler industry. So while the volume outlook may recover in FY20, but we are cautious on the profitability, especially in the two-wheeler space. So we had 3 to 4 quarters back downgraded both Bajaj Auto and Hero MotoCorp to hold. So we continue to maintain that stance. TVS is the only pick in our two-wheeler space. We had also downgraded Eicher to neutral, citing rising competitive pressures in the form of Harley Davidson and even Java motorcycles now coming into the play. So clearly, while the volume growth might recover from FY20, but we are very cautious from an earnings perspective, because the earnings growth might not be that much as the volume growth, because the competitive pressures are on the higher side.
All right, Mr. Srinivasan as well as Bharat, thanks very much for joining us with your take on the two-wheeler space and whether or not the momentum can continue for the sector. We'll take a break on that note. When we come back, more on the markets.